Mr. Secretary, you've had a very busy week. I know you have been at the Vatican, and they have offered to host a direct meeting between Ukraine and Russia. Given that Vladimir Putin was a no-show at the talks he called for in Istanbul this past week, is there reason to believe that he will take up Pope Leo on the offer?
Well, I think if you saw, again, I'm not the spokesperson for the Kremlin, but if you saw their statements, I believe yesterday, where they said that they would be open to such a meeting under the right conditions. So we'll wait and see if that's possible. Obviously, the Vatican has made a very generous offer to host anything, by the way, not just a meeting between Zelensky and Putin, but any meeting, including at a technical level. You know, any meetings that need to be hosted, they've expressed a willingness to do so. So it's a very generous offer that may be taken up on. I mean, it would be a site that all parties would feel comfortable. So hopefully we'll get to that stage where talks are happening on a regular basis and that the Vatican will have the opportunity to be one of the options.
The Russian Foreign Ministry is saying that you initiated a call to your Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, on Saturday. What was that about? Are you talking about lining up that face-to-face meeting between President Putin and President Trump?
Well, we talked about a variety of things. We did talk about, I wanted to get his readout on his view of how the talks went yesterday. They were not a complete waste of time. For example, there were 1,000 prisoners that are going to be exchanged, and that from a humanitarian standpoint is very positive. He explained to me that they are going to be preparing a document outlining their requirements for a ceasefire that would then lead to broader negotiations. So obviously the Ukrainian side is going to be working on their own proposal, and hopefully that'll be forthcoming soon. And if that does happen, and the proposal that comes forward from the Russian side, and for that matter from the Ukrainian side, are proposals that are serious and viable, then there's been real progress, and we can work off of that. So we'll have to wait and see, but he wanted me to know, and he communicated in our call, that their side will be working on a series of ideas and requirements that they would have in order to move forward with a ceasefire and further negotiations. So we'll await that, and hopefully it's a document that is close enough to what the Ukrainians want to be able to get to that point and maybe work out those differences.
You've said repeatedly it's just a matter of days, though, in terms of the waning patience that the U.S. has for this diplomacy to succeed. So are they just tapping you along, as President Trump has said? Are they just seeking to talk? Are they just seeking to continue to talk to buy time?
Well, that's what we're testing, and that's what we'll know. Look, at the end of the day, what I've said, and it's happening now, we're no longer flying all over the world trying to set up meetings. We're responding to meetings that are set up, and we always said we're willing to do whatever it takes to bring them together if the opportunities present themselves. So I think your question is, are they tapping us along? Well, that's what we're trying to find out. We'll find out pretty soon. They met yesterday or the day before in Turkey. From that, they agreed they're going to exchange paper on ideas to get to a ceasefire. If those papers have ideas on them that are realistic and rational, then I think we know we've made progress. If those papers, on the other hand, have requirements in them that we know are unrealistic, then we'll have a different assessment. So we're going to try to find that out. And there's a combination here. On the one hand, we're trying to achieve peace and end a very bloody, costly, and destructive war. So there's some element of patience that is required. On the other hand, we don't have time to waste. There are a lot of other things happening in the world that we also need to be paying attention to. So we don't want to be involved in this process of just endless talks. There has to be some progress, some movement forward. And if at the end of this, in the next few days, we get a document produced by both sides and it shows that both sides are making concessions and being realistic and rational in their approach, then I think we can feel good about continuing to remain engaged. If, on the other hand, what we see is not very productive, perhaps we'll have a different assessment. I also agree that ultimately one of the things that could help break this logjam, perhaps the only thing that can, is a direct conversation between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. And he's already openly expressed a desire and a belief that that needs to happen. And hopefully that'll be worked out soon as well. You're planning on that? Well, I don't know. We're certainly made the offer. The president's made that offer already publicly. The mechanics of setting that kind of meeting up would require a little bit of work. So I can't say that's being planned as we speak in terms of picking a site and a date. But the president wants to do it. He wants to do it as soon as feasible. I think the Russian side has also expressed a willingness to do it. And so now it's just a question of bringing everyone together and figuring out where and when and that meeting will happen and what it'll be about.
Yeah, I want to move on to other topics, but lastly, your former Senate colleague Lindsey Graham was next to you in that meeting with the Ukrainian foreign minister. He has a veto-proof majority on this bill to put sanctions on Russia. How quickly do you want the option for more sanctions on Russia, or are you asking him to wait?
No, we're not. Look, the Senate is going to act ultimately. I mean, I think in the past we've acted to give us a little time to see if we can make some progress on our talks. But we've also been pretty clear with the Russian side for weeks now, going back 6 or 7 weeks. We've been communicating to the Russian side that this effort was being undertaken, that we anticipated that when all was said and done, it would have close to 80 co-sponsors in the Senate, and I imagine a comparable percentage of support in the House, that was an effort we couldn't stop and don't control. That ultimately Congress, and in particular the Republicans in the House and Senate, have tried to give the president space and time to negotiate something here. But we've advised the Russians repeatedly now for almost 2 months that this was coming if no progress was made. So I think that's just coming to fruition now, and it's one of the things that I confirmed again being with Lindsey Graham this week in Turkey is they're now up to 77. He thinks they could get close to 80 or more. And that's just a fact, and something we've told the Russians about for weeks was coming.